Please, James. Just $40. Ruby needs formula. The words left Maya Williams' mouth barely above a whisper as she typed, each letter feeling heavier than the last. Her thumb hovered over the send button, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. Her daughter whimpered softly in the crib beside the threadbare couch, the winter air of Cleveland biting through the poorly sealed windows. I get paid Friday. I'll pay you back, I promise, she mumbled again as she reviewed the message. Then, eyes burning, she tapped, send. A moment of silence, then another. She closed her eyes and leaned her head back against the wall, trying to summon strength she no longer had. Ruby hadn't eaten properly in 2 days. The last bottle had been watered down so many times it was barely milk anymore. And Maya, once an efficient, well-paid accountant, was now jobless, penniless, and alone. She hadn't even wanted to ask her brother again. He had his own family now, his own struggles. But desperation doesn't ask for permission. It pushes you past pride. The phone buzzed. She grabbed it instantly, a mix of relief and shame churning in her gut. But the message was not from James. I think you have the wrong number. Her eyes darted back to her sent message. She had typed the number wrong again. Her stomach twisted. She covered her face with one hand and exhaled hard through her nose. Idiot, she whispered. Quickly, she typed back, I'm so sorry. Please ignore that. She tossed the phone aside and stood, pacing the living room, her thin socks slipping slightly on the linoleum floor. She didn't cry. Not yet. She'd cried when the gas was turned off, when her food stamps got delayed, when Ruby's father vanished before the baby's birth. But not tonight. She frowned and picked the phone up. Will your baby be okay? She stared at the words. The screen glowed pale in the darkened room. Who was this person? We'll manage, she typed. Sorry to bother you. I could help, came the reply. No strings attached. Her brows furrowed. Thanks, but I don't take money from strangers. Smart choice, the stranger replied. I'm Elijah. Now I'm not a stranger. Maya blinked. Elia? What formula does your baby need? He wrote. She didn't respond right away. Was this real? Some scam? But her hands moved on their own. It's called Gentle Start Plus. It's the only one that doesn't upset Ruby's stomach. Seconds later. What's your Venmo? Maya hesitated. The world didn't work this way. People didn't just help, especially not strangers over text. But she was too tired, too drained to keep doubting, and she could always block him later. She sent it. The response was nearly instant. Your account has received $400. Her mouth opened slightly. 400? This is too much, she typed quickly. I can't accept this. Think of it as help for the next few months, Elijah replied. One less thing to worry about. Maya's throat tightened. The tears came fast, unexpected. She pressed her palm to her mouth and turned away from Ruby's crib. She hadn't cried this way in months, not since the eviction notice. Not even when she missed Ruby's first laugh because she was out begging the food pantry to stay open 5 more minutes. Thank you, she typed, fingers damp. You're welcome, Maya. Take care of Ruby. She froze. She had never mentioned her daughter's name. She reread the message. Take care of Ruby. Her hands trembled. Her breath caught. How? The night passed slowly. Ruby slept more soundly after her belly was finally full. Maya stayed awake, clutching the baby monitor like a lifeline, wondering who Elijah really was. At sunrise, a new message came in. Hope you and Ruby had a better night. I have a job offer for you. She read it again and again. A job? What kind of offer? She replied cautiously. A professional one, Elijah responded. I run a company called Brooks Renewables. We need someone with your background for a temporary project. Maya's heart beat faster. Brooks Renewables was all over local news, clean energy, urban job creation, non-profit partnerships, legitimate, powerful. How do you know my background? She asked, pulse thumping in her ears. There was a pause. Your number is close to James Williams. He works in our HR department. I showed him the message. He recognized you. He told me about your skills. She sat down slowly, processing everything. It's a 3-month contract, Elijah added. Might lead to more. Interested? I'd need flexible hours, she answered. I have Ruby, no daycare. We offer on-site childcare, he replied. Come in at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Reception will be expecting you." Maya looked around the small apartment, at the broken blinds, at Ruby sleeping soundly for once, then at her one clean blazer hanging behind the bathroom door, and for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, she whispered aloud something she hadn't dared say in months. "Maybe this is our second chance." If this story touched something deep inside you, the fear, the hope, the quiet courage of a mother doing everything she can, then don't scroll away. Tap like if you believe kindness can still show up in the most unexpected ways. And if you want more stories like this, real, emotional, and unforgettable, make sure to subscribe. Your support helps keep these voices alive. The rain hadn't stopped since dawn. Maya adjusted Ruby's blanket with one hand while balancing an umbrella in the other. The wind snatched at the edges of her second-hand blazer, and her scuffed heels clicked uncertainly on the marble steps leading to the Brooks Renewables headquarters in downtown Chicago. The building rose like a wall of glass and steel into the gray sky, far taller and sleeker than anything she'd ever set foot in. Its clean, modern lines were intimidating, but she forced herself forward. A smartly dressed woman stood just inside the revolving doors, holding a tablet. As Maya stepped through, dripping and breathless, the woman gave her a warm, practiced smile. "Maya William?" "Yes," Maya replied, adjusting Ruby on her hip. "I'm Susan," the woman said, extending a hand. "Mr. Brooks asked me to greet you personally. We're so glad you could come. Follow me?" Maya hesitated. "No security check? No front desk wait? Just walk in?" Susan led them through the main atrium, which smelled of lemon polish and high expectations. Employees passed by in tailored suits, sipping lattes and tapping on tablets. No one looked twice at Maya's thrift store shoes or the loose thread hanging from her sleeve. Or maybe they did, and were too polite to show it. They took the elevator to the top floor. The doors opened into a surprisingly cozy executive suite, walls lined with books, not awards, a few plants, family photos, and in one corner, a vintage acoustic guitar resting in a stand. "This doesn't look like a billionaire's office," Maya said softly, mostly to herself. A deep voice behind her replied, "That's intentional." She turned quickly. Elijah Brooks stood in the doorway. He was taller than she expected, broad-shouldered, with close-cut salt-and-pepper hair and a calm intensity in his eyes that made it hard to look away. He wore a dark sweater over a collared shirt, no tie, no watch, just a presence that filled the room without trying to. "Call me Elijah," he said, offering his hand. Maya shook it. His grip was firm but warm. "Thank you for coming," he said, motioning toward a comfortable leather chair. "Please, have a seat. And Ruby's welcome to roam. Susan will keep an eye on her." Susan was already setting up a soft playmat and a few toys near the window. Ruby cooed, reaching for a plush fox as if she belonged here. Maya sat slowly, clutching her small purse. Her heart was racing, but she forced her posture straight. "I wasn't sure what to expect," she admitted. "I don't usually get invited to job interviews via text, especially not after asking for formula money by mistake." Elijah smiled. "That message reached me on the 3rd anniversary of my daughter's passing. She would have been 9 this year." Maya's expression softened. "I'm so sorry." He nodded once, eyes distant. "Her name was Lena. She had a rare heart condition. Brightest kid I ever met." Then he looked at Maya. "Your message wasn't a mistake. It was a reminder." Maya swallowed hard. She didn't know what to say, so she said nothing. Elijah tapped on his desk and pulled out a folder. "Now, about the position. We've been preparing for a merger. Before we go through with it, I need a second set of eyes on some legacy account data. Someone with no prior ties to the internal teams. No politics, just integrity." He slid the folder across to her. Maya opened it. The numbers were familiar territory inventory allocations, vendor payouts, back-end payroll. The salary listed made her blink. "This is a lot more than I made at my last job." "It's what the work is worth," Elijah said simply. Maya looked up at him. "Why me?" "You're qualified. You're honest. And," he hesitated, "sometimes I think people who've been through hard things see what others miss." Maya considered that. Her eyes drifted to Ruby, who was now babbling to Susan as if they were old friends. "I'd need a flexible setup," she said carefully. "I don't have anyone to watch Ruby right now." Elijah nodded. "Our daycare is full this quarter, but there's a small meeting room beside this office. I've had it converted into a private workspace. You can bring her. She'll be safe." "Just like that?" Maya asked. He met her gaze. "Just like that." She nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll do it. You start Monday. Susan will walk you through everything." They stood. Elijah reached out again to shake her hand. This time Maya didn't hesitate. There was something solid about him, grounded, like he wasn't trying to impress anyone, just be decent. She left the building that day with a folder of onboarding documents in her bag and something rarer than a job in her chest. Hope. The next few days passed in a blur. Maya arrived each morning at 9 a.m., Ruby strapped to her chest or bouncing beside her in a stroller. The small office-turned-nursery was warm and welcoming, clean rugs, toys, a mini crib in the corner. Susan brought coffee every morning and checked in before meetings. No one questioned her presence. No one looked down on her. Maya buried herself in numbers. At first, everything seemed straightforward, just old vendor files and payroll audits. But 3 days in, she spotted something odd. A duplicate vendor invoice with a payout that didn't match the job order. Then another, and another. By Friday, she had flagged 14 transactions totaling over $1.7 million. She printed out the records, circled the discrepancies, and walked them down the hall to Elijah's office. He was alone, standing by the window with his phone to his ear. When he saw her, he held up a finger, finished his call, then turned. "You found something," he said, his voice steady. Maya laid the papers on his desk. "The numbers don't add up." He read through them carefully, jaw tightening. "How bad?" he asked. "At least $3 million across 18 months. Probably more." He looked at her, something flickering behind his eyes. "Don't tell anyone else yet. Not even Susan." "Why?" "I need time to verify." Quietly, "You've done well, Maya. Just stay close." She wanted to ask more, but the way he said it, the quiet urgency made her nod instead. Later that day, as she walked Ruby down the hall toward the elevators, a man stepped into her path. "Vincent Harmon," he said, offering a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I hear you're working on something special." Maya blinked. "Just checking the books." "Just remember," Vincent said, his tone still light. "This company was running just fine before you got here, and it'll keep running after you're gone." Maya watched him walk away. Ruby stirred in her arms, and Maya whispered, "Yeah, well, we'll see about that." That night, as she tucked Ruby in and sat at the tiny kitchen table of her rented studio, she opened the printed reports again. The numbers stared back at her like ghosts, real, heavy, dangerous. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She opened the message. "This is Detective Ramos with the Chicago Financial Crimes Division. We'd like to ask you a few questions regarding irregularities at Brooks Renewables." Her blood ran cold. She called Elijah. It rang once before he picked up. "They called you?" he asked. His voice was sharp. "Just now." He was silent for a moment. Then, "Maya, there's something I need to show you." He didn't wait. Within 20 minutes, he was at her door, carrying a brown leather file folder. "I've been working with the FBI," he said as he laid the documents on her table. "For months, but I couldn't trust anyone inside. Too many leaks." "And me?" she asked quietly. "You trusted me?" "I needed someone honest, someone new. And you," he paused, meeting her eyes. "You were never supposed to be part of this, but maybe you were the only one who could be." Maya stared down at the document's surveillance logs, financial trails, call transcripts. The scope of it was staggering. "You used me," she said. "I gave you a real job," he replied. "And yes, I hoped you'd see what I couldn't." She wanted to scream, or cry, or walk away. But in the next room, Ruby stirred in her crib, and Maya knew this wasn't just about her anymore. "Elijah," she said slowly, "what happens next?" He looked at her with calm determination. "Next," he said, "we finish what we started." The next morning, Maya walked into Brooks Renewables carrying Ruby in her arms, her stomach tied in knots. She had barely slept. Elijah's late-night visit still haunted her, his quiet urgency, the folder of classified evidence, and the sharp sting of truth behind his words. "I hoped you'd see what I couldn't." He hadn't just offered her a job. He'd made her the unwitting linchpin in a secret federal investigation. She was no longer just an accountant or a single mother trying to make ends meet. She was part of something dangerous, Susan met her at the top floor, her usual warm smile in place. But Maya saw something in her eyes today. Concern, perhaps, or suspicion. Or maybe she was imagining things. "Maya," Susan said softly, "you're early." "Couldn't sleep," Maya replied. "Ruby was up most of the night. Coffee's waiting in your room. I added a bit of cinnamon, figured you could use something warm." Maya smiled faintly. "Thank you." She stepped into the converted meeting room that had become her workspace. Ruby kicked happily on the playmat by the window, and Maya settled at the small desk, flipping open her laptop. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, but her thoughts drifted back to Vincent Harmon's face, the way he had smiled without warmth, the veiled threat in his voice. "This company was running fine before you got here. He knew something, or maybe he knew she knew something." She opened the encrypted drive Elijah had given her and began reviewing the flagged transactions from the day before. One stood out: an offshore consulting firm based in the British Virgin Islands, with large monthly deposits for energy advisory services. Maya clicked into the file. No matching invoices, no client meetings, no proof of work. And yet, each payment had been approved, digitally signed by Vincent. At 10:30 a.m., Susan poked her head in. "Elijah wants to see you." Maya stood, her breath catching. She glanced down at Ruby, then gathered herself. "You'll keep an eye on her?" Susan nodded. "Always." Elijah's office door was ajar. He stood near the window again, staring out at the morning fog that rolled in from Lake Michigan. "You found it, didn't you?" he asked without turning. "I think so," Maya said, setting the printed file on his desk. "It's not just sloppy accounting, it's a front. That advisory firm doesn't exist." Elijah finally turned around. His eyes were tired but steady. "I had a feeling." "Then why wait this long?" Maya asked. "Why involve the FBI now?" "Because 3 years ago, I trusted the wrong person," he said, "and we lost 30% of our assets before I even noticed." He walked to the edge of his desk, leaning against it. "This time I knew better. But I couldn't move without confirmation. The moment I accuse a board member without proof, it becomes war. And war needs strategy." Maya folded her arms. "And I'm part of that strategy. You're the wild card they didn't see coming." He said it gently, but it still stung. "I'm not comfortable with this," she whispered. "I know," he replied. "That's exactly why you're the right person." She didn't respond. She couldn't. A moment later, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. "That's the FBI. They want to schedule a formal debriefing. They'll need your statement." Maya's heart pounded. "Today?" "Soon," Elijah said. "But don't worry. They won't contact you directly again, not unless I say it's safe." That afternoon, while Maya rocked Ruby to sleep near the window, a shadow fell across the doorway. Vincent. He stepped into the room uninvited, closing the door behind him. The sound was soft, but to Maya, it slammed like a gunshot. "You're getting comfortable here," he said, eyes scanning the playmat, the crib, the folders stacked neatly on her desk. "Funny thing." Maya stood slowly, placing Ruby gently in the crib. "Can I help you?" Vincent smiled. "I just wanted to check in. You've been going through a lot of records lately, important ones. I've been doing what I was hired to do." "Of course, but sometimes, when people dig too deep, they find things that aren't theirs to find." She clenched her fists. "Are you threatening me?" He stepped closer, his voice lowering. "I'm reminding you, this company was built on trust, and trust can be revoked just as quickly as it's given." Before Maya could reply, the door opened behind him. Elijah stood there, calm but with a sharpness in his eyes Maya hadn't seen before. "Vincent," he said, "can I help you with something?" Vincent turned, smooth as ever. "Just saying hello, welcoming Maya to the team, CEO to contractor." "Then consider her welcomed," Elijah said evenly. "She's got work to do." Vincent nodded. "Of course." He turned back to Maya, his smile flickering. "You take care now." When he left, the air seemed to shift. Elijah closed the door behind him and exhaled. He's starting to feel the pressure. "Why is he still here?" Maya asked. "You have enough to confront him." "I need more," Elijah replied. "The board won't move without airtight proof, and if I jump too soon, he'll destroy whatever's left." Maya sat down. Ruby stirred slightly, but didn't wake. "I'm scared," she admitted. I know, Elijah said softly. But you're not alone. That night, Maya didn't go straight home. Elijah had insisted she and Ruby take a car service discreet, secure. The black sedan dropped her off at a quiet neighborhood on the west side. As they stepped inside the apartment Elijah had arranged done with reinforced locks, a separate entrance, and a panic button hidden in the cabinet, Maya felt the first tremor of realization. This was real. This was no longer just about spreadsheets. Later, after putting Ruby to sleep in the small crib near her bed, Maya sat at the kitchen table with a fresh file in front of her. Elijah had delivered it personally that evening. A memo from the company's internal server. A file Vincent had tried to delete or recovered by Elijah's cybersecurity team. In it, a timeline, a list of shell companies, and one damning phrase highlighted in red: board member authorization, discretionary slush routing directive, masked under R&D allocation. Oh, she knew what it meant. They had proof, and she was holding it. The next morning, Maya sat across from two FBI agents at a quiet downtown cafe, her hands wrapped around a lukewarm coffee cup. Elijah was nearby, sitting at a separate table, pretending to read a newspaper. Detective Rama spoke first. "Miss William, thank you for agreeing to meet." Maya nodded. "I didn't have much of a choice." Agent Locke, older, wore a kind but unreadable expression. "You're doing the right thing. We're going to take care of you." Maya looked at them both. "Am I in danger?" There was a pause. "Yes," Ramos said plainly. "But you're also in a position to end something that's been bleeding this company, and the people who depend on it for years." Maya took a breath. "I'm in." She slid the folder across the table. As they flipped it open, Agent Locke's brow furrowed. "This is exactly what we needed." Ramos looked up. "There's a board meeting in 3 days. Are you willing to testify?" Maya's hands trembled slightly. "If that's what it takes." When she returned to the office the next day, Susan greeted her with a long Hugoon expected, warm, almost motherly. "I know something's going on," Susan said softly. "I won't ask what, but whatever it is, I'm proud of you." Maya blinked back tears. "I'm not brave," she whispered. Susan smiled. "That's what makes you brave." Elijah was waiting inside his office with a new file on his desk. "We have one shot," he said. "At that boardroom table, you'll have the floor. They'll expect you to be quiet. They'll expect you to break." "I won't," Maya said, her voice steady. Elijah smiled faintly. "I believe you." And for the first time, so did she. The boardroom was larger than Maya expected, longer, colder, brighter. One entire wall was glass, overlooking the Chicago skyline, but it offered no comfort. The conference table, a dark slab of wood polished to a mirror shine, stretched across the center like a battlefield altar. Chairs lined both sides, each one occupied by a member of the Brooks Renewables Board of Directors. 12 men and women in suits worth more than Maya's monthly rent, their expressions unreadable, hands resting near sleek notepads and untouched glasses of water. At the head of the table sat Elijah, calm, silent, his hands folded. Maya stood at the opposite end, a stack of documents clutched in her hands and Ruby's small second-hand diaper bag slung over one shoulder. She had left Ruby with Susan in the converted office next door safe, at least for now. Vincent sat 3 seats to Elijah's right. His tie was crimson today, his posture sharp, and his eyes never left her as she walked in. There was no smile. Not this time. Elijah rose to his feet. "Thank you all for being here. I know this meeting was called with little notice, but what you're about to hear demands our attention." He turned to Maya. "Miss William." She nodded and stepped forward. Her heels echoed too loudly on the polished floor. The silence was immense, heavy. She took a slow breath, then began. "I was brought in 6 weeks ago to review financial records ahead of the pending merger," she said. Her voice was steady, but she felt every heartbeat in her fingertips. "In that time, I've uncovered multiple irregularities, false vendors, duplicate invoices, offshore routing, with no substantiating paperwork." She moved to the screen and clicked a button on the laptop. The projector lit up behind her. A spreadsheet. Simple. Devastating. "These are not accounting errors," she continued. "They are intentional misappropriations of funds, routed through entities that do not exist on paper outside of bank ledgers." She walked slowly along the table, placing a single printed folder in front of each board member. This documentation contains internal memos, approval chains, and transaction records indicating systematic financial fraud totaling over $3 million, likely more. There was a murmur, papers shifting, brows furrowing, pens tapping. One board member, an older woman in a pale blue blazer, looked up. "Are you implying someone at this table is responsible?" Maya didn't answer. Elijah did. "We're not implying. We're presenting evidence." Vincent leaned forward. "And where exactly did this evidence come from?" Maya met his eyes. "From the same server you tried to wipe clean." A few heads turned. One man choked slightly on his water. "I believe you all know Mr. Harmon has served as CFO for 6 years, Maya said. "He approved nearly every transaction flagged in this investigation, and he is directly linked to all 6 shell companies used to launder funds." This is slander," Vincent snapped. Elijah stood again, slow and deliberate. "No, Vincent. This is accountability." Vincent's chair scraped against the floor as he rose. "You're going to take the word of a woman you barely hired? A single mother with no history in this company? No loyalty to this board?" "She has loyalty to the truth," Elijah said. Maya stepped closer. "And for the record, I didn't want to be involved in this. But you made it impossible not to see." Vincent's jaw tightened. "This is a coordinated hit job." Maya's voice was quiet but firm. "You made it easy." The room shifted again. Board members glanced at one another. Some leaned forward, others leaned back. No one defended Vincent. That's when the door opened. 2 men and 1 woman entered dark suits, FBI badges. "Vincent Harmon," one of them said clearly, "you are under investigation for wire fraud, embezzlement, and obstruction of justice. Please stand and come with us." He did not move. Instead, Vincent's hand dipped into his suit jacket. Maya saw it before anyone else did. "Gun!" she shouted. Chows erupted. Chairs flew back. Someone screamed. Elijah moved with a speed Maya didn't know he possessed, shoving her behind the table just as Vincent pulled the weapon from his coat. Before he could lift it, the nearest FBI agent tackled him. The gun skidded across the floor. 2 board members hit the ground. One of them began to sob. Vincent thrashed, then stilled under the agent's knee. Handcuffs clicked. Silence settled again. Shattered. Elijah helped Maya to her feet. "Are you hurt?" "No," she said, her breath ragged. "You?" He shook his head. The FBI agents led Vincent out, silent now, his eyes locked on Maya the entire way. But there was no more menace in them, only hatred and fear. The boardroom slowly emptied. Some offered Maya hushed words of thanks. Others looked away. One man, a retired Air Force colonel, touched her arm gently and said, "That took courage." She nodded, unable to speak. Only Elijah and Maya remained when it was over. She stood by the window, watching traffic crawl across the bridge in the distance, while Elijah poured 2 glasses of water and handed her one. "I've never seen anything like that," he said softly. "Neither have I," she admitted. "I should have protected you better." "You did," she said, then turned to face him. "You believed me. You listened. That's more than most." He stepped closer. "You know, when I read your message that night, I thought I was just doing a good thing, helping a stranger. But somewhere along the way, you stopped being a stranger." Maya's eyes welled up, but she didn't cry. "Not yet. I still don't know why you trusted me. Because you had nothing to gain and you still told the truth." There was a long silence between them, filled only by the distant hum of the city. Then he said it, voice quiet but certain. "Stay. Not just in the job. Stay here. With me. With Ruby." Maya's heart skipped. "Elia," he smiled, but it was sad around the edges. "We don't have to name anything. Not yet. But the truth is, I don't want to go back to that office tomorrow and not see you." She looked at him. Then, after a long moment, she reached for his hand. "Then don't." 3 days later, Maya stood in the newly renovated audit officer name already on the frosted glass door. Ruby played at her feet, safe, fed, giggling. Susan walked by with a wink and a warm coffee in hand. Elijah stood in the doorway, tie loosened, sleeves rolled. He watched Maya work for a moment before speaking. Funny how a wrong number can be the most right thing that ever happened. Maya looked up, eyes soft. "It wasn't wrong," she said. "Just unexpected." And this time, she did cry. Not because of fear, or exhaustion, or despair, but because she had made it. And she wasn't alone anymore. The smell of coffee reached Maya before her eyes opened. She was still tangled in flannel sheets, a soft morning light filtering through the tall windows of Elijah's guest room. No, her room now, at least for the time being. Ruby was snoring softly in the portable crib beside the bed, one tiny arm flung over her head in total, blissful sleep. There was a knock. Maya? Elijah's voice, gentle, not rushed. She sat up, hair messy, eyes still adjusting to the light. Come in. He entered holding 2 mugs, one of which had the words, "World's Okayest Accountant," scribbled on it in black marker. I figured you'd appreciate the honesty, he said with a smile, handing it to her. She laughed, the sound still unfamiliar in her throat after weeks of tension. I don't know if I should be flattered or mildly offended. Depends on how much caffeine is in it. She took a sip. Hot, sweet, strong, perfect. The past 3 days had been a whirlwind: meetings with federal agents, interviews with legal counsel, a quiet ceremony at the office where the board formally installed her as the new director of internal audits. Her new office was small but bright, and she insisted on keeping the converted playroom next door. Elijah didn't argue. He never argued with her, not when it mattered. He sat on the edge of the bed, watching Ruby stir. You know she snores just like you, he said softly. She does not, Maya whispered with mock indignation. She does. I have video. She rolled her eyes, but her cheeks warmed. The banter was easy, now natural. She wasn't used to that. She took another sip. So, what's on the agenda today, boss? He grinned. You're not back to work until Monday. Still my boss. Not today. She tilted her head. Then what are you? He met her gaze, slower this time. Just a man hoping to spend the day with someone who changed his life. She set the mug down and looked at him. Really looked. The lines around his eyes from years of quiet grief, the strength in his hands, the softness in his voice. This was the man who had believed her, who had shielded her, who had waited, and who was still waiting for her to decide if this was real. By late morning, Maya found herself in Elijah's kitchen, barefoot, hair tied back, standing at a marble countertop that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Ruby sat in a high chair nearby, chewing on a silicone spoon while watching her mother saute spinach with practiced ease. You sure you want to cook? Elijah asked, leaning in the doorway, sleeves rolled to the elbow. I need to cook, Maya replied. It reminds me of who I was before everything fell apart. Chef? Number daughter. He stepped closer. Tell me. She stirred the pan. My mom used to make spinach and garlic every Sunday. Just that. A huge bowl of it. We couldn't afford much, but she made it feel like a feast. Elijah was quiet. Then, where is she now? Passed, Maya said softly. Cancer. Right before Ruby was born. I'm sorry. I think, if she saw me now, she'd finally breathe easy. I kept thinking I'd let her down. Living off government checks, scared to answer the door when rent was due. Elijah placed a hand gently on her back. You didn't let anyone down. They ate together at the small round table near the bay window, sun warming their plates. Ruby babbled between bites, flinging steamed carrots like tiny missiles. Elijah caught one and made a face that sent her into squealing laughter. This, Maya said suddenly, feels impossible. He didn't ask what she meant. He just waited. This peace, this safety. I didn't think people like me got to have this. People like you? He asked. She looked up, eyes shining. People who fell, people who made mistakes. He shook his head. People like you build this, with grit, with grace. She was quiet for a moment. Then, you make it easy to believe again. That afternoon, Maya took Ruby for a walk around Elijah's neighborhood. It was quiet, tree-lined, with brownstones that whispered old money and well-kept secrets. But it didn't feel cold. Neighbors waved. A mailman smiled and tipped his cap. Even the air felt different, lighter. At a small corner park, Ruby toddled across the grass while Maya watched from a bench. Her phone buzzed. A text from Susan. Just so you know, your office door has a nameplate now. Looks official. Miss you today. Maya smiled and typed back. I'll be back Monday. Just soaking up the quiet while I can." She put the phone away and turned her face to the sun. A voice startled her. "Miss William?" She looked up. A man in a gray suit stood a few feet away, hands clasped in front of him. His smile was polite. Too polite. "I'm sorry to bother you," he said, "but I represent Mr. Harmon." Her body stiffened. "Excuse me?" "Vincent Harmon. He's currently in federal custody, but he asked me to deliver a message." Ruby ran back toward her, arms outstretched. Maya scooped her up protectively. "I'm not interested," she said coldly. "He said you would say that," the man replied. "But he insists this is in your best interest. He's willing to trade information." Maya's grip on Ruby tightened. "Tell him I'm not negotiating with a criminal." The man nodded once, handed her a card, and left without another word. Maya stared at the card in her hand. Jackson Reed, defense attorney. She crumpled it. That night, Elijah found her on the balcony, a blanket around her shoulders, Ruby asleep inside. "You okay?" he asked. She handed him the card. He read it, then sighed. "He's desperate. He knows you're the key witness. If he can scare you, make you doubt, he might get a deal." "I'm not afraid of him," Maya said. "I know," Elijah said, "but I am." She looked up at him. "I'm afraid of anything that makes you second-guess the peace you've earned. You deserve to be safe, Maya. So does Ruby." She turned to the railing, her voice low. "If I'd never sent that message." He stepped beside her. "Then I'd still be sitting in that office, surrounded by people I couldn't trust." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small velvet pouch, and handed it to her. "What's this?" she asked. "Something Lena picked out," he said softly. "Years ago. She wanted to give it to the woman I'd love one day." Maya opened it. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet, engraved with a single word, "Believe." Tears welled in her eyes. "Elia, you don't have to answer anything tonight," he said. "This isn't a proposal. This is just acknowledgement of where we've been and where we're going." She slipped the bracelet on. "I'm not used to being chosen," she whispered. He touched her face gently. "Then get used to it." Later that night, as Maya watched Ruby sleep, she whispered, "Your mom's gonna be okay, baby. We're gonna be okay." And just outside the window, the street lamp flickered once, then steadied like a quiet promise kept. Monday morning came with a quiet kind of clarity. Maya stood in front of the full-length mirror in the bedroom Elijah had offered her permanently last night, though neither of them had said the word permanent. She wore a navy blue blouse tucked into slate-gray slacks, her hair pulled back with just enough softness around the edges to remind her that she wasn't just an executive now, she was still a mother, still Maya. Ruby sat at the edge of the bed, swinging her legs in mismatched socks and humming some tune she'd made up herself. Her stuffed fox was tucked under one arm, watching the morning ritual like a silent guardian. "You ready to go impress some board members?" Maya asked with a smile as she clipped on small gold earrings. Ruby offered a lopsided grin and squeaked the fox in response. As they walked into the kitchen, Elijah was already pouring coffee into a thermos. "You look intimidating," he said, raising an eyebrow. "Good," Maya replied, straightening her collar. "Let's keep them on their toes." He handed her the thermos. "You sure you don't want me to walk in with you today?" She shook her head. "If I can handle the FBI, a corrupt CFO, and toddler tantrums, I can handle Monday." He kissed her forehead. "You're braver than me." She paused before heading out. "And you're the reason I remember how to be." The office welcomed her like a place that had been waiting for her return. Susan was the first face she saw, standing outside Maya's glass-doored office, holding a clipboard and a coffee she knew Maya liked extra hot, with almond milk and a shot of cinnamon. "Back to the battlefield," Susan said warmly, handing over the cup. "Did it miss me?" Maya asked. "Honestly, you've been the only thing people have talked about." Maya sighed. "Good or bad?" Susan smiled. "The kind of talk that scares those who've been getting away with too much, and gives courage to those who haven't spoken up until now." Maya nodded and stepped into her new office. The nameplate on the door still gave her pause. Maya William, Director, Internal Audit. She took a moment at her desk, fingers running across the smooth grain of the oak. She'd brought nothing personal and yet no photos, no plants, but the room already felt like hers. There was a file waiting for her on the desk labeled HR, Complaint, Sensitive. She opened it slowly. The document described multiple whistleblower accounts from mid-level staff, all pointing to fraudulent travel reimbursements submitted by one of the remaining department heads, Paul Bennett, director of procurement. He had worked under Vincent for years. Maya exhaled and buzzed Susan. "Can you send in Paul Bennett for a brief meeting?" Susan hesitated just slightly. "He's in already?" He arrived early, probably hoping to steer the story. 5 minutes later, Paul walked in, all confidence and cologne. He was in his mid-50s, with salt and pepper hair and an expensive watch that caught the light as he shook Maya's hand. "Director William," he said with a nod, like they were equals. "Paul," Maya replied, gesturing to the seat across from her. "I'm reviewing expense reports and came across a few red flags. I'd appreciate your input." Paul's smile flickered, but only for a moment. "Of course. Transparency is the heart of integrity." Maya slid the file across the desk. "These flights to Dubai, Hong Kong, and Vancouver, none of them match any project logs for your department in the last fiscal year." Paul leaned forward, voice measured. "Those were scouting trip strategic vendor relations. We're expanding global presence. No records of meetings, no email chains, no receipts beyond the hotel invoices and airfare." Paul's posture stiffened slightly. "Sometimes, when you move fast, documentation lags behind." Maya nodded. "Understandable. I'll need you to submit a full memo outlining the business case for each trip, as well as all correspondence. We're initiating a standard audit process." Paul stood abruptly. "Are you implying misconduct?" "I'm initiating an audit," she said calmly, not implying anything. He leaned over the desk, voice lowered. "This witch hunt of Yorsit won't end well for you. There are people on that board who don't like disruption." Maya met his gaze without flinching. "Then they'll hate me." As he left, Maya stared out her window at the city, heart pounding but steady. She wasn't just cleaning up Vincent's mess. She was lifting every rug in the building to see what had been swept under. By lunch, 3 more files had been submitted anonymously to her inbox each, revealing small but consistent abuses of funds, improper hiring referrals, and internal favoritism. The quiet alliance forming around her wasn't loud. It was in whispered acknowledgments by staffers in the hallway, in thank you notes slipped under her door, in the eyes of employees who had grown used to staying silent. She was building something. Not just control, credibility. That evening, Maya sat on the floor of Elijah's living room, Ruby nestled against her, watching cartoons. Elijah had ordered takeout from a small Caribbean place Maya mentioned in passing once. The room smelled like grilled jerk chicken and sweet plantains. Elijah placed a plate in front of her and handed Ruby a sippy cup. "You look like you carried the whole building on your back today," he said, sitting beside her. "I think I did," Maya replied, resting her head against his shoulder. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled envelope. "This came to the office. No return address." The handwriting looked off. Maya opened it cautiously. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed. "No signature. You made a powerful enemy, but you also made something worth protecting. Watch your back." Her breath hitched. Elijah read it over her shoulder. His jaw tightened. "Should I be worried?" she asked. "I am," he said honestly. Maya folded the letter carefully and placed it back into the envelope. "But I'm not running." Elijah leaned his forehead against hers. "Then I'll stand behind you, every step." That night, as Ruby slept and the house fell into a rare stillness, Maya opened her laptop one last time and began drafting a company-wide letter. "To the Brooks Renewables team, I didn't come here to lead. I came here looking for a job, hoping to survive another month. But what I've found in these walls is a company worth fighting for, a team that deserves more than silence and fear. Starting this week, our department is opening an anonymous reporting channel for financial and ethical concerns. This isn't just compliance. This is integrity. If you've been waiting for permission to speak, you have it now. With respect, Maya William, Director, Internal Audit." She hit send. And in that moment, for the first time in years, Maya felt something deep inside her settle. Not victory, but something better. A foundation, a beginning, a belief that even in a world of wrong numbers and right enemies, the truth still had a voice, and hers was just getting started. The next morning, Maya arrived at the office too early for someone balancing motherhood and a high-pressure role. But sleep had eluded her again. The anonymous letter still lingered in her mind like smoke. You made a powerful enemy, but you also made something worth protecting. The words weren't a threat in the traditional sense, but they weren't reassurance either. They read like a warning written by someone who'd seen both sides of the battlefield. As she stepped into the elevator, holding a fresh cup of black coffee and glancing down at the updated dashboard of reports, she noticed something strange. Her building access log from the night before had an anomaly. According to the system, someone had entered her office at 9:17 p.m. after she had already gone home. She blinked. No one was scheduled for after-hours auditing, and Elijah had been with her the entire evening. Her heart began to thump not from panic, but from the familiar pulse of something being off. By the time she reached her floor, her mind was already racing through protocols. Who else had keycard access to her office? Susan was standing by the glass door when she arrived. "Morning," Susan said. "I was just about to message you." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Something happen?" Susan leaned in, lowering her voice. "Security called. They flagged some odd access activity in the server room last night. Someone entered with an invalid badge ID." Maya's gut tightened. Was anything taken? Too early to tell, but the head of IT said one of the mirrored drive zone that backed up historical financial records was forcibly wiped. Maya stepped past her, fast walking to her office. She set down her coffee and pulled up the systems report on her laptop. Within minutes, she could see the breach confirmed. It wasn't just any drive. It was a high-encryption backup server used during the Vincent Harmon era, and it had been scrubbed, not deleted, overwritten, which meant whoever did it wasn't trying to erase one document. They were trying to erase an entire window into the past. She picked up the phone and called Elijah directly. "We've got a problem." 2 hours later, Maya sat across from Brooks Renewables' head of security, a retired naval officer named Curtis Miles. He was broad-shouldered, stoic, and didn't speak unless it mattered. He placed a printed image on her desk, an image from the 9:17 p.m. timestamp. The figure was fully covered, black hoodie, ball cap, no visible face, but the posture, the gait, the height. "It looks like a man," Maya said. Curtis nodded. Tall, confident, knew where the cameras were, never looked up once. Keycard. Cloned. Someone piggybacked on a valid ID, most likely a digital skim during elevator use. "Whose badge?" Curtis looked at her. "Yours." Maya stiffened. "They used your badge log as the basis for cloning access. Means this was premeditated. Someone inside knew your patterns." She exhaled slowly. "So someone's still playing Vincent's game." Curtis nodded. "This isn't just about past fraud anymore. This is about keeping something buried." She rubbed her temple. "But we've already handed over the core files. The FBI has what they need. Maybe they're not after the FBI's version. Maybe they're after yours." Later that day, Elijah called an emergency leadership meeting. 12 people sat around the long conference table, including Paul Bennett, still under informal audit. He kept his face neutral, but Maya could feel the tension rolling off him in waves. Elia spoke first. "Last night, we experienced an unauthorized data breach targeting one of our off-grid backup systems. The incident is under active investigation." Heads turned. Whispers began. Maya stood. "I'm aware that the Internal Audit Office has made some people uncomfortable. That's fine. But targeting our financial systems with coordinated sabotage is no longer about protecting reputations. It's criminal, and we will prosecute it as such." Paul leaned back in his chair. "What if this is an outside actor? A competitor, maybe? Someone trying to destabilize the merger?" Maya met his gaze. "If it is, they knew exactly which server to erase, and whose badge to clone." He didn't respond. Elijah chimed in. "Effective immediately. All department heads are to undergo secondary authentication clearance. No badge access without biometric verification." The room groaned, but no one dared argue. The meeting ended quickly, but Maya could feel eyes on her as she left. Not admiration, not respect. Watchfulness. That evening, Maya stood by her office window, watching traffic hum below. Ruby was napping in the room next door, Susan keeping an eye while Maya tried to focus. She hadn't seen Elijah all afternoon. His assistant had said he was in back-to-back calls with the FBI and legal. When he finally walked in at dusk, He looked tired but determined. "I think I know what they were after," he said, sitting across from her. "You found something?" He nodded. Back in 2018, Vincent spearheaded a Green Corridor initiative, a set of public partnerships across city councils in Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. On paper, it looked clean. But the vendor list? That's where it gets interesting. He pulled a document from his folder. 6 of the vendors were shell companies, but one mid-state infrastructure solution SaaS, a traceable tax ID. Maya leaned forward. "And? It's tied to a former city official, someone who's now running for Congress." She froze. "If that connection goes public, it won't just take down Vincent," Elijah said. "It could collapse an entire political donor network." Maya leaned back, the weight of it all pressing down on her chest. "No wonder they're scared." "You should be too," Elijah said gently. She looked at him. "But I'm not." He smiled. "That scares me more than anything." Back home that night, after Ruby was asleep and the house had gone still, Maya stood on the back porch with a mug of tea and a file folder clutched in her hands. Elijah joined her, handing her a sweater. "I miss the quiet," she said. "It'll come back. Not the same. Not after this." He looked at her. "What if it could be better?" She turned toward him. "You think that's possible?" "I think you've made people believe again," he said. "Not just in the company, but in what it can be." She stared at the stars. "Every time I feel like I'm breathing again," she whispered, "someone tries to push me back under. You keep coming back up." She looked at him, steady now. "Because I have something to protect." Elijah reached out, lacing his fingers with hers. "And so do I." At 3400, Maya's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She stared at it for a beat before answering. "This is Maya." The voice on the other end was modulated, digitally distorted. "You don't know me, but I know what you're doing, and I know why they want you silenced." Maya sat up slowly, careful not to wake Ruby. "Who is this?" "Someone who used to work for Vincent. Someone who saved copies before he could destroy everything." Maya's pulse quickened. "I want immunity," the voice said, "and then I'll give you everything." She didn't speak. Then the voice added, quietly, "You're not alone, Miss William. Just the first one who didn't look away." The line went dead. By sunrise, Maya was already in the kitchen, pacing quietly, trying not to wake Ruby. Her coffee sat untouched on the counter, growing cold as her thoughts spun faster than she could control them. The voice from the night before echoed in her ears. "I want immunity. Then I'll give you everything." She had heard desperation before. She had heard manipulation. But this had sounded different. Not fear-driven, not power-hungry, just tired. Like someone who'd seen too much and finally wanted out. Elijah walked in, still in a faded t-shirt and flannel pajama pants, rubbing sleep from his eyes. One look at Maya and his posture straightened. "You didn't sleep." "No," she said, still staring at the phone on the counter. "We got a visitor last night." He crossed to her, silent until he stood close. "The same voice?" She nodded. "Said they used to work for Vincent. Said they have backups of everything he tried to destroy, and they want immunity." Elijah took that in, then spoke softly. "Do you believe them?" "I don't know yet," she admitted, "but I believe they're watching everything." He grabbed the coffee pot and poured her a fresh cup. "Then we give them a way out, and we do it carefully." By 9:30 a.m., Maya was sitting in the back booth of a small coffee shop just a few blocks from the Brooks Renewables office. Elijah had arranged a secure line with the FBI and asked them to listen in remotely. No agents on site. No suits. No pressure. The witness had agreed to meet through a burner phono video. No names. She waited. Her hand was steady on the ceramic mug, but her foot tapped rhythmically under the table. She had brought nothing that could be Trace Edno Company laptop. No encrypted drives. No digital ID. Just a notebook and a cheap flip phone Elijah had picked up from a gas station at 6 a.m. At 9:42, the phone buzzed. She picked up immediately. A distorted voice came through, the same one from last night. "Thank you for meeting me." Maya replied calmly. "I want to help you, but we can't do this unless you're ready to give something real." "You want a file?" "I want the truth." There was a pause. Then, "It's all in a cold server, hidden in a storage facility outside Joliet. Vincent used it as a failsafe. I know the access key. I installed the firewall myself." "What's in it?" Every payout, every bribe, every contact from the last 7 years. Maya swallowed. You still have access? Yes, but not for long. His people are trying to find it. I've heard whispers. I need your name. Number. I need something, she insisted. The FBI won't grant immunity without a name, without proof. Another long pause. Then, there's a thumb drive taped under the far bench in the Greyhound Terminal Chicago station, Gate 17, in a gum wrapper. 30 minutes from now. You'll know if I'm for real. The line went dead. Maya sat still for a long beat, then pulled out her phone and texted Elijah a single sentence. It's happening. The bus terminal was everything Maya remembered from her hardest years, fluorescent lights buzzing faintly. The smell of stale fries and distant gasoline, echoes of shoes against the scuffed tile floor. She walked briskly to Gate 17, her heart pounding harder with each step. There, under the bench, the far one by the vending machines, she reached beneath with a tissue and pulled back a worn gum wrapper. Inside was a black thumb drive, smooth and cold in her palm. She slipped it into her coat pocket and left without looking back. Back in her office, Maya and Elijah sat side by side in the audit room. Ruby was next door with Susan, giggling through peekaboo games as if the world weren't balancing on a wire outside these glass walls. Curtis, the head of security, was there too. So was a federal cyber forensics agent named Diana Monroe, who had arrived without a suit, dressed instead in jeans and a windbreaker, to keep attention low. Her laptop was military grade, wired into a closed network Elijah had set up in a secondary office across the floor. The room fell quiet as she plugged in the drive. Then the files opened folder after folder, each time-stamped, each linked to aliases that matched shell companies Maya had already uncovered. But there was more, a lot more. Audio recordings, private phone calls, email logs from encrypted accounts, board members, city council members, a congressman. Diana let out a low whistle. This isn't just fraud. This is organized crime. Elijah rubbed the back of his neck. How deep does it go? Diana looked at them both. If even half of this is corroborated, it doesn't stop at Vincent. This could lead to half a dozen indictments. Maya stared at the screen, her pulse steady now. What do we do with it? She asked. Diana smiled grimly. We build the fire. That afternoon, the board of directors was called into a private session. Elijah stood at the head of the table. Maya sat to his left, the same chair she'd occupied during the confrontation with Vincent. But this time, there was no fear. This company is being used, Elijah began, as a platform to funnel illegal funds into political and international interests. We now have proof verified, multi-source, time-stamped. Some of you are mentioned. Some of you are not. He let that hang. I am giving everyone in this room one chance, he continued. If you have participated in any of these dealings, this is your opportunity to cooperate. Legal counsel will be made available, but we are working with the FBI, and silence will not protect you. A few members exchanged glances. One cleared his throat. I didn't know. Maya leaned in. But you suspected. He dropped his eyes. Another board member, a woman with sharp glasses and a sharper tongue, spoke next. You're setting this company on fire, Mr. Brooks. No, Elijah said. We're removing the rot, so it can grow. Silence followed, and then one by one, the chairs began to empty. By sunset, 3 resignations had been submitted. 2 lawyers were on the premises, already conducting preliminary interviews, and Maya stood on the rooftop patio just outside the executive wing, watching the city lights flicker on like fireflies in a jar. Ilya joined her. I didn't think it would move this fast, she said. It's because of you. She turned to him. It's because of us. He smiled, then reached into his coat pocket. You remember that bracelet Lena picked out? Maya touched the silver band on her wrist. Believe. She wanted her mom to have one too, he said. I never gave it to anyone, until now. He opened his hand. Inside was a second bracelet, this one gold, the word engraved, endure. Maya took it with both hands, eyes glistening. 2 sides of the same coin, Elijah said. Belief and endurance. She looked at him, her voice barely more than a breath. I never thought my life would be something someone else believed in. It is, he said, and it always was. You just needed someone to say it out loud. That night, While Ruby slept peacefully under a star-patterned blanket, Maya sat at her desk writing. Not a report, not a memo, but a letter to herself. Dear Maya, you thought you were asking for help, but you were answering a call. You thought surviving was the end goal, but you were meant to lead. You thought you had nothing left, but you had truth. And that is everything. Don't forget who you are. Even when the room is full of eyes, even when they come for you in silence, you are more than their secrets. You are the voice that breaks them. Love, the woman who believed when you didn't. She folded the note and placed it in her drawer. Then she turned off the light and walked toward her daughter's room, toward warmth, toward love, toward something worth protecting. And for the first time in her life, she didn't wonder if she belonged. She knew. 3 days after the boardroom resignations, Maya stood at the north-facing window of her office, watching thick clouds roll over Lake Michigan. The wind was picking up, carrying that early spring chill that threatened rain without quite delivering it. Behind her, her laptop chimed softly new messages from the FBI, a thank you from a junior accountant in payroll, and a final confirmation from the Justice Department. Immunity granted to the anonymous whistleblower, now identified only as Case Delta. The man who had once hidden behind a voice modulator was now under federal protection. His evidence was irrefutable. In the words of Agent Monroe, "We don't just have a case now, we have a clean sweep." But Maya didn't feel victorious. She felt suspended, like something was still lurking behind the glass. Susan entered without knocking, carrying a folder and a paper bag. "You've been here since 6 a.m. That officially makes you a workaholic." Maya glanced back and offered a weak smile. "Technically, I never stopped being one." Susan placed the bag on the desk. "Lox and cream cheese, from that place you liked near the station." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Didn't you say that place was full of attitude and overpriced onions?" "Correct," Susan replied. "And that's how you know I love you." Maya chuckled. It felt good to laugh, even for a second. She took the bag and slid the folder closer. "What's this?" "A compliance update. And something odd." Maya paused. "Odd?" Susan's smile faded. "A maintenance request came through early this morning. One of the cleaning crew found a cell phone behind a vent panel in the third-floor server room." Maya straightened. "A phone? No SIM, but it had recordings, voice memos. One of them mentioned your name." Maya opened the folder and pulled out the printed transcript. She scanned the lines quickly, then stopped cold. She doesn't realize who's really funding the investigation. They're watching both her and Brooks. She looked up. "Who else has seen this?" "Only me," Susan said. "And now you. Get me Elijah." Elijah arrived within minutes. He had come from a vendor meeting and still wore his suit jacket. His expression tightened as he read the transcript. "They're watching us?" he murmured. "Even now?" Maya stood behind her desk, arms crossed. "Whoever planted that phone wanted it to be found. The vent panel wasn't screwed in properly. That's not a mistake. It's a breadcrumb." Elijah looked up. "A warning? Or a challenge?" Maya said. They sat in silence for a moment before Elijah spoke again. "The merger committee has been asking questions, mostly about stability. Our financials are stronger than ever, but perception is everything." Maya nodded. "And perception is fragile when secrets leak in drips instead of waves." He exhaled. "You think there's someone still inside?" "I think there's always someone," Maya said. "But I also think we have more allies than we realize." Elijah studied her. "You're thinking of going public, aren't you?" Maya didn't answer at first. Then, "Not names, not yet, but the story, the principles, what we stood up to, what we're building now. People need to hear it from someone who lived it." Elijah hesitated. "That will make you a target again." "I'm already a target," Maya said softly. "But I can choose how they see me, and I'd rather be a flame than a shadow." That night, Maya stood in front of a small studio microphone in a makeshift booth inside Brooks Renewables. Curtis, the head of security, stood on the other side of the glass, monitoring the equipment. "This is for internal release only," he said through the speaker. "Employee bulletin and leadership transparency update. You ready?" Maya adjusted the mic. "I'm ready." She took a breath and began to speak. "My name is Maya William. Some of you know me as the Director of Internal Audit. Some of you know me only by name or by rumor. I want to share something that's not on a spreadsheet. She paused. I came to this company by accident. A message sent to the wrong number. I was tired, desperate, alone. And someone on the other end of that message chose to see Minot as a mistake, but as a possibility. She glanced at Curtis, who gave a nod. What followed was hard, messy, frightening, but it was also honest and necessary. Together, we uncovered corruption. We removed people who were feeding off this company's success for their own private gain. And now, we're rebuilding not just with cleaner books, but with clearer hearts. Another breath. You may be scared to speak up. I was. You may wonder if anyone will stand beside you when things get dark. I did. But I'm still here. We are still here. Because truth doesn't shatter when it's tested, it strengthens. She sat back and nodded. Curtis stopped the recording. That's going to resonate, he said quietly. The next day, the company-wide audio message played in small break rooms, in loading docks, in corner offices. Some employees listened with arms crossed. Others cried quietly. A few stood up afterward and made their first ethics report within the hour. But not everyone was moved. At 3:17 p.m., an anonymous email hit Maya's inbox. Your courage is inspiring. Too inspiring. Be careful where you cast your light. Some of us have been hiding in the dark a very long time. Maya forwarded it to Curtis without hesitation. His reply came 5 minutes later. We traced the IP to a private proxy system operating out of D.C. Likely political, maybe even federal. You just kicked over a bigger hornet's nest than we thought. That night, Maya sat on the balcony with Elijah again, Ruby asleep behind the glass. Rain tapped gently on the railing. I thought this would end when Vincent was arrested, she said. So did I, Elijah replied. But it's bigger. He was just a thread. And you pulled it, he said. Maya looked at him. Does it scare you? How far this might go? He turned to her, his eyes steady. It would scare me more if we stopped. She smiled faintly. You're too good. He laughed. Don't say that. I still eat cold pizza for breakfast and can't fold a fitted sheet. They sat in silence a while longer. Then Maya spoke. I've been writing again, she said. Not audit reports, just thoughts, letters, notes to Ruby she won't read for years. Why now? Because I want her to know who I was when I found myself again. Not just the woman who struggled, but the one who stood. He reached for her hand. She already sees it. As they got up to go inside, Maya's phone buzzed. Another message. I want to talk. No lawyers, no agents. I have what you need to finish this, but I won't speak unless you come alone. Parkside Bridge. Tonight. Midnight. Elijah read the message with her, his face unreadable. It's probably a trap, he said. Probably, she agreed. You're not going alone. Maya looked at the message again, then at the skyline beyond, and whispered, but what if it's not? The city was quieter than usual by the time Maya arrived at Parkside Bridge. Midnight in Chicago didn't usually mean silence, but tonight the sky hung heavy, and the wind whispered with purpose through the girders overhead. Streetlights cast long, tired shadows on the concrete, painting fractured patterns across her windshield. She pulled up near the eastern walkway, just beyond the view of traffic cameras, and shut off the engine. Ruby was asleep at home, watched by Susan and Curtis, who had both insisted on keeping the house under surveillance while she was gone. Elijah had argued. He'd paced the living room in a storm of quiet fury, warning her over and over that going alone was too dangerous. But she had made a promise to herself months ago. Never run from the firewalk straight into it with your head up. Still, she wasn't stupid. Curtis had slipped a small tracker into the hem of her coat. It was active. She had a mic, too hidden in the clasp of her bracelet. If anything went wrong, Elijah and Curtis would be within minutes of her. She stepped out of the car and let the wind close the door behind her. The bridge stretched ahead, skeletal and vast, its steel arches gleaming under the pale orange glow of city lights. A single figure stood near the center, back turned, shoulders hunched against the wind. Maya approached with calm, deliberate steps. You came alone, the figure said without turning. You asked me to. I didn't think you would. I usually do the thing no one expects, she said. He turned. It wasn't what she had imagined. He looked ordinary. Early 40s maybe. Tall, lean, with thinning hair and a worn face like he hadn't slept in weeks. His hands were in his coat pockets, and he looked at her not with menace but with exhaustion. "I'm not going to give you my name," he said, "but I'll give you the last piece." Maya stayed still, her heartbeat steady, her eyes trained on his. "I've already given the FBI everything you handed me," she said. "What could possibly be left?" "The insurance policy," he said. "The one Vincent kept for leverage in case everything fell apart." She frowned. "Leverage?" He nodded. He had dirt on everyone, not just the board, not just the politicians, federal agents, regulators, journalists. It's all in a separate partition, encrypted, hidden under an environmental report on the Brooks Energy Cloud server. "That file's been wiped." "No," he said. "It's been cloaked. The file name was changed. It's still there." He stepped closer and held out a small drive. "This decrypts it. But once you access it, you'll have to act fast. It flags a server ping. Anyone still loyal to Vincent will know it's been opened within minutes." Maya hesitated. "Why now?" He looked down, voice quieter. "Because I didn't know who to trust before. I didn't believe anyone would actually bring this to light. But you didn't stop. You didn't back down." He looked up. "And if you're willing to risk everything to end this, then maybe I should too." Maya took the drive. The man stepped back. "Once this is over, I disappear. I go where none of this can follow." She nodded. "Then let me be the one to carry it the rest of the way." He turned, walking away with his shoulders curved like someone who had been carrying ghosts for too long. She didn't watch him leave. She just stood there on the bridge for a moment, the drive clutched in her hand, the wind tugging gently at her coat like it was urging her forward. Back at the office, the building was dark, except for a single light glowing from the audit floor. Elijah stood by her desk, arms folded, Curtis beside him, laptop already open, systems booted. "You're okay?" Elijah asked immediately. "I'm fine," Maya said, handing him the drive. "And I think we just found the final fuse." Curtis inserted the drive and initiated the protocol. Maya typed in the passkey the man had given her on the bridge. Nova, 7, Delta. The system paused for 3 long seconds. Then the screen blinked and rows of files populated the screen. Elijah leaned forward. "Is that what I think it is?" Curtis let out a low breath. "Oh yeah. The files were labeled with code names, but the metadata didn't leave federal payments routed through third-party shell accounts, internal memos between regulatory officials and Vincent's office, manipulation of press coverage through controlled leaks, suppression of union activity through silent buyouts. One file in particular caught Maya's eye. J. Harland, Commission, Override, PDF. She opened it. Inside was a signed letter of approval for a massive contract adjustment tone that had allowed Vincent to route $2.3 million in clean energy grants into a falsified solar project. The signature belonged to a senior official at the Department of Energy. Curtis leaned back. "You just hit the artery." Elijah stared at the screen. "We take this public. It's not just about us anymore. It's national." Maya nodded. "Then we better get ready." Within 12 hours, the FBI had been handed the new drive. By sunrise, 3 federal warrants had been issued. The Department of Energy released a statement denying all knowledge. The press exploded with headlines. CFO's secret empire exposed. Federal whistleblower operation, tied to energy scandal. Brooks Renewables exec, aided in national crackdown. But inside the building, Maya didn't feel like celebrating. That afternoon, as she walked through the main hallway, she saw a janitor, an older black man she'd passed dozens of times but never really noticed, pause and nod at her. "Been here 22 years, he said gently. "Saw a lot of people look away. You didn't." She smiled. "Thank you." He nodded once more. "We needed you." Later that evening, as the sun set gold over the lake, Maya stood in the living room with Ruby in her arms. Elijah entered with a stack of mail and a small envelope in hand. "This came today," he said, holding it out. "From the Department of Justice." She opened it slowly. Inside was a single card. "To Maya William. In recognition of your courage and contribution to public service, this office formally acknowledges your role in one of the most significant whistleblower cases in the last decade. Your actions remind us that the truth has many enemies, but it only needs one defender." She read it twice, then folded it carefully. "What are you thinking?" Elijah asked. Maya looked down at Ruby. I'm thinking my daughter will grow up in a world where her mother didn't stay quiet. He stepped beside her. And she'll know it because you'll tell her. No, Maya said softly. She'll know it because she'll see it. In how I walk, in how I speak, in how I stand. Elijah smiled. You've changed everything, you know that? She met his eyes. Number, I just answered the phone. As night fell over Chicago, Maya sat at her desk, lit only by a single lamp. She opened her notebook and began to write. I was just trying to survive. Then I became someone who uncovered the truth. Now I want to be someone who builds something better. She looked out at the city broken, bruised, but still shining, and whispered to herself, let's begin. You're not walking in there alone, Maya said, her voice quiet but firm as she adjusted the sleeves of her blazer in the parking lot. The two stood side by side in front of the courthouse, its tall columns casting long shadows in the late morning sun. Jamal looked at her, unsure whether to argue or be moved. He chose the latter. I'm not asking you to fix this, he said gently. I know, she replied, but I won't let you carry it alone. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with whispers as people slowly filled the seats. The media had caught wind of the trial local mechanic faces off against corporate Goliath, and the story had grown legs. Reporters huddled with notepads. Spectators shifted uncomfortably. Maya's presence caused a stir. Everyone knew her face now. Not because she was rich, but because she had chosen to stand next to someone who wasn't, and she made no attempt to hide it. Jamal stood at the defense table, shoulders broad and steady, wearing the same tailored gray suit Maya had insisted on buying for him. It wasn't expensive by her standards, but it was clean, sharp, and told the world that he respected himself enough to look like he belonged even in places he hadn't been invited to before. Across the room sat the lawyer for Farage Corporation, flanked by Ronald Wexler, the man who had tried to make Jamal disappear with a fake apology and a check. The man who had underestimated him. The judge entered. Silence fell. Opening statements began. The prosecution painted Jamal as reckless, implying that he had trespassed onto private property and fabricated the assault. But their words felt stale, disconnected from the man who now stood proud and composed before the jury. Then came Jamal's attorney, an older black woman named Ruthie McAdams, who had practiced law in Georgia for 30 years and didn't blink under pressure. Ruthie's voice rang out clear. This isn't just about a man being beaten. It's about who they thought he was. A nobody. A poor mechanic who didn't matter enough to tell the truth for. Until one woman, who had everything to lose, chose to stand beside him and say, that's enough. Each witness was called. A security guard, nervous, admitted to hearing a scuffle, but was told not to intervene. A janitor, an older man with trembling hands, spoke of how he saw Jamal being pushed into a wall. The footage from the security camera, once mysteriously unavailable, had somehow resurfaced thanks to Maya's quiet but relentless contacts in cybersecurity. The clip was short, but it was undeniable. It showed Ronald Wexler shoving Jamal with both hands. The room reacted audibly. Then came Maya. She walked to the stand in a white blouse, hair pulled back, no makeup, just truth. Her voice didn't tremble. I was there, she said. I saw him being threatened, and I saw how quickly they lied about it afterward. They didn't just attack him, they tried to erase him. Her words hung heavy in the room. The jury watched her not as a billionaire, but as a woman who had found something worth standing up for. By the afternoon, the courtroom had shifted. There was tension still, but also a sense of clarity. Jamal wasn't on trial anymore, Farage was, and it showed. During a recess, Jamal sat beside Maya in the hallway. He looked at her hand resting on the bench between them and gently placed his over it. Why are you still here? He asked. She didn't look at him. Because I was tired of watching good people get crushed by the powerful, she said. And because you're not just someone I believe in, you're someone I care about. Jamal said nothing, but his thumb pressed gently against hers. No words needed. Closing arguments came swiftly the next day. Ruthie stood and delivered with fire. If we let people like Ronald Wexler buy silence and shape truth, then none of us are safe. Justice isn't a matter of wealth, it's a matter of right and wrong. The jury left to deliberate. Time moved slowly. Maya and Jamal waited in a quiet corridor, sitting side by side, shoulders barely touching. Every minute stretched like an hour. Finally, the door opened. Jury has reached a verdict. Back inside, Everyone stood. The foreman read aloud, voice steady. We find the defendant, Mr. Jamal Harris, not guilty of trespassing. We find the plaintiff, Farage Corporation, liable for assault and defamation. Damages awarded, $2.3 million. There was a breath, then noise, gasps, murmurs, applause from one corner. Jamal sat frozen for a second, then looked at Maya. He didn't say a word, just nodded, eyes glistening, jaw tight. She smiled, tears rising but unfallen. She reached for his hand again. This time, he squeezed back. Outside the courthouse, reporters clamored. Cameras flashed. A dozen microphones stretched toward Jamal. He raised his hands, and the crowd quieted. I didn't come here to win money, he said. I came here because the truth matters, and because no one should be afraid to stand up when they've been wronged. I didn't fight alone, and I'm thankful I didn't have to. He turned to Maya, eyes holding hers. She stepped forward, slid her hand into his without fanfare, and together, they walked down the courthouse steps not as a billionaire and a mechanic, but as something that didn't need a title yet. As they reached the sidewalk, Jamal leaned close and whispered, "So, lunch?" Maya laughed, the sound light and full of release. "Only if you let me pay this time," Jamal grinned. "We'll flip a coin." And they disappeared into the crowd not as headlines, but as two people rewriting the end of their own story. "I never wanted anything from you but the truth," Maya whispered, her voice trembling like the final notes of a forgotten song. The rooftop was still, high above New York's skyline, with the wind carrying the scent of rain and distant sirens. Darius stood across from her, his face etched with weeks of exhaustion, betrayal, and love. Behind them, the city glittered oblivious to the storm unraveling between two people who had once found hope in each other's broken places. They had climbed so far, and now, everything hung in the balance. Maya's phone buzzed. It was a message from a journalist of the few she still trusted. Attached was the final piece of evidence, a video clip showing Ronald Sinclair in the warehouse, overseeing the switch of pharmaceutical labels, knowingly sending out defective insulin that had nearly killed children. The footage was time-stamped, and Sinclair's voice was clear. "I don't care if it makes them sick. Dump it. The stock needs a bump." It was over. The silence between them thickened. Maya turned the screen toward Darius. His eyes didn't move. He had known. Not at first. But somewhere along the way, he had found out, and he had tried to protect her from it. Darius finally spoke. "You needed justice, not just closure. You needed a world that believed you." Maya's chest rose and fell. "And you thought lying to me would help that? I thought sparing you would let you heal." His voice was hoarse. "I was wrong." For a long time, Maya said nothing. The cold seeped into her bones. But then she stepped closer. "What made you come here tonight?" Darius looked up at her, vulnerable in a way the world rarely saw. "Because I knew, if I didn't, I'd lose the only woman who ever saw me as more than the money." She blinked. He added, "I wasn't trying to be your savior, Maya. I wanted to be your equal." Something cracked in her quietly, painfully, like ice melting under pressure. The elevator dinged behind them. It was Maya's lawyer and a pair of detectives. The arrest warrants had come through. Sinclair would be taken in before sunrise. As the others spoke in hushed tones, Maya turned back to Darius. She took a deep breath. "Come with me," she said softly. "To where?" "To watch it all go down." They arrived at Sinclair's penthouse just before dawn. The NYPD moved quickly. The disgraced executive didn't resist already seen the headlines leaking online. Investors were fleeing. Board members were resigning. The empire he'd built on silent suffering was crumbling finally. Maya stood in the background, not triumphant but solemn. Justice was not a firework. It was a slow, quiet restoration. As Sinclair was led away in cuffs, their eyes met for a fleeting second. He tried to say something, but Maya turned away. She didn't need his apologies. Not anymore. A week later, Maya stood on the small community stage in Brooklyn, at a neighborhood center she and Darius had secretly helped fund. Families gathered, local press snapped photos, but the real moment came when Maya walked up to the microphone. "I'm not a politician. I'm not perfect," she began. I'm a woman who asked for help once and was given more than I expected. And today, I want to give that back." She looked at Darius in the front row, holding their little girlies, their daughter. After everything, love had found a way. This center will serve single mothers, working families, and every child who's been told they're not enough, because someone once believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. That belief changed my life. Now it's my turn. The crowd erupted in applause, not for charity but for justice wrapped in grace. That evening, on the same rooftop where they had once nearly broken apart, Maya and Darius stood again. The air was warmer now, softer, a new season beginning. "She's sleeping," Darius said, returning from the nursery. Maya smiled, sipping from her mug. "You were always better at calming her down." He sat beside her, shoulder to shoulder. "Maybe because I see her in you. She's got your stubborn heart." They laughed quietly, and then Maya turned to him, serious. "I forgive you." His throat tightened. "You don't have to." "I know," she interrupted, "but I want to, because holding on to the pain doesn't protect me anymore. Letting go, that's what makes room for love." He reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. The city lights twinkled below as a soft breeze passed between them, cleansing, promising. And for the first time in a long time, Maya William didn't feel like she was surviving. She felt like she was home,